This is Helping of Happiness, episode number 155. Today we have on guest Taylor Riggs, and Taylor is going to teach us all about how history can unify us, more specifically talking a little bit about Black history and the Restoration. Hi, I'm Hillary Hess, and you're listening to Helping of Happiness. I am a crazy mom of 7 kids who loves to build memories through eating delicious family recipes and going on adventures with my family. On this podcast, you'll be introduced to light-filled people and ideas that inspire me to be a better mom and help me bring family closer together and closer to Jesus Christ. Hello! We are back for another week. I'm really excited to introduce you to our first guest. I can't tell you how pumped I was when I found Taylor's videos. Oh my goodness, she's so awesome. So she creates these videos that are all about Black history, but they're all at the time of the restoration of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So it's early members of the church. So this is like mid to late 1800s for those of you that maybe aren't members of our church. We talk a lot this episode about Come Follow Me, and Come Follow Me is a Sunday school curriculum from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's free. It's online. You can do it with your family if you want. And after we talk to Taylor, we have our little Spoonful of Spirit segment with Lindy Schock, and Lindy is from Enoch Studies, and she creates these really cute little kits for us to do Sunday school lessons with our kids. So she has them for younger kids and also for teens. So it's really awesome. So you'll hear us chat a little bit about this week's topic. So without any further ado, I can't wait for you to meet Taylor. Taylor, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I am so good and so excited to chat with you today. I loved seeing your cool things that you share on Instagram, and then way excited about your YouTubes that you've been doing. So before we get into all of these cool things that you're doing, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about you and about your family, and even kind of some background about your motherhood story, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's fun to be here. My husband and I have been married 12 years this summer, so that's fun. And we had our first son really quickly after getting married. And we then 2 years later had our daughter. And then when she was 1, we were crazy and we decided to become foster parents out of nowhere. And our families thought we were crazy because it just seemed like a weird time in our lives. My husband's also in the military, so it's like, why would you take that on? But we felt really strongly that we needed to do that. And so a few months later, we were placed with a sibling group, and they were with us for about 8 months, and we loved them and it was wonderful. And then all of a sudden we went to a meeting and found out they were going to go live with some different family members. So that was hard, but they are thriving there and did so great. And so then a few months later, we got a phone call about a little baby boy in the NICU who was born with drugs in his system, and he had cataracts in his eyes, so he would need cataract removal surgery. But they're like, but other than that, he's great, he's perfect, he's beautiful. And so we jumped on it and took him into our home and had him in our home for about 2 weeks. And then we got a phone call that his mom was going to have a chance to get him back. They had originally told us we could adopt him, and so that was hard. And then a few minutes.
Oh my gosh, this is like such an emotional roller coaster. Are you just?
It was so much, because then a few minutes later, we got a phone call that he has Down syndrome, which we didn't know. And we didn't know if his features were because he looked like his parents. We didn't know what his parents looked like, or if it was from the drug exposure. But then we found out he had Down syndrome. And then that morning I had found out I was also expecting.
Oh my gosh.
It was a crazy day. Yes. We're like, we don't know what to focus on more, what to be more concerned by. And honestly, it helped the Down syndrome diagnosis not even be an issue, right? Because we're more worried about whether or not he gets to stay in our family than if he has Down syndrome or not.
Oh my goodness.
So
how long had you had him up to that point then? How long had you had him in your
when
home?
he got his diagnosis, probably he was only 2 weeks old. So probably just a couple weeks, like a very short time. But as any mom knows, you totally fall in love. I mean, we were in love the moment we got that phone call. And so he was ours in our hearts. So definitely we were more worried about having to say goodbye to a child we loved again than we were learning how to navigate Down syndrome, for sure. So that was definitely a heavy thing. So the next few months turned crazy because kids with Down syndrome have so many medical concerns that you have to just go to every doctor on the planet to rule things out. So by the time he was 8 months old, he had had almost 8 surgeries and over 100 doctor's appointments. So
And
I was
how old
pregnant.
were your other kids? How old were your other two kids?
Had 3 and 1 when we got him.
Oh
and
my
then,
goodness.
yeah, and then they had birthdays during that time, so they were a little bit older. So by the time my youngest was born, we had 4 under 4, and my oldest son has developmental delays and speech delays. So they were all just tiny and had their own things they were working through, and it was crazy, but it was wonderful. We were able to adopt Zane 2 weeks before baby Drake was born, which was amazing. And so we were just so happy to be able to keep him in our family and have Drake. And so it's kind of been a fun and crazy motherhood journey. But now,
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Wow.
yeah, so now we're just it's been so fun. Drake, the youngest, is almost 6. So every summer the boys are the same age. Their birthdays are at the beginning and the ends of the summer. So they're the same age all summer, which they think is so fun. And they're both in kindergarten, heading into 1st grade. So we survived so far.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So this was kind of a big year for you then, did everybody go to school this year, or what does your schooling look like with COVID?
So in our district, they go Monday through Thursday and they have Friday off. But Zane, because of his conditions with Down syndrome, we kept him home because of his immune system being lower. And then the other kids are just really careful, washing hands and all of that. So it's been fun because I've had a lot of one-on-one time with him, which I haven't really had since he was an infant. So that
yeah, because your kids were all needing you so much when they're all so tiny at the same time.
Yes. So when he was a baby, I held him 24/7 through his naps, through everything. I just held him constantly. He was just a doll, just a sweetheart. So it's been fun to kind of have that time, just him and I this year.
That is so cool. Wow. That is a journey. Okay. So,
and hopefully that's it. All 4 of them are here. I am. Hopefully that's a lid on that. It'd have to be like an angel coming and telling us we need more. So,
oh man, that's almost what it took for me to have my extra 2 kids. They had some pretty solid experiences. It was like, oh, okay, we have 2 more to come. And I'm glad. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine our family without them. It'd be incredible. So let's tell everybody, what is To Cheer and to Bless, and how did it get started? And I mean, you're in the midst of all of this motherhood, all these kids that are all close together. I'd love to hear how that all happened.
My personality is I always kind of have to have something that I'm personally working on for my own growth, along with like motherhood and being a wife. I just feel like that helps me feel closer to the Spirit and it helps me grow. So when my first 2 kids were little, I was finishing bachelor degree. And then when the little boys were like 1, I started my master's degree and finished that. Well, then that was done and I had nothing besides being a mom, which is amazing and I love, but I felt like I needed something more. So I started praying to know what Heavenly Father would want me to do next. And nothing was really coming to mind. So this was a couple years actually that I was just praying to figure out what to do next. And then Easter, April 12th, 2020, President Nelson, of course, everything had just like shut down and things went crazy. And President Nelson posted this beautiful post on his social media pages. And at the end, he said, "On this most special of days, I encourage you to look for ways to share your testimony of the Savior, Jesus Christ. Despite our current circumstances, we can still share the joyful news that he lives." And in that instant that I read it, I felt like I needed to start this Facebook page. And I just knew that I needed to share as much as I could, as often as I could, about the gospel and about Jesus Christ. And so my very first post was on April 12th, the day that he posted that, about Easter, on Facebook. I was getting ready for church that morning And I was like, what should I call it? What should I call it? And I just thought to cheer and to bless. Like that is the whole point of the gospel. And the good news of the gospel is cheering and blessing the children of God. And so I started it and started posting right then. And it's a slow burn and slow growing, but as long as I continue to keep following that counsel and the inspiration that I received that day, then I'm doing what I need to do. Whether one person reads it or 100 people read it or whatever it is, I just felt so strongly that that was my next best thing. And so that is how To Cheer and to Bless even got started.
I think it's incredible that you started it that day. You didn't even mess around. You just jumped in. I think how incredible to follow a prompting that quick. That's so awesome.
Well, and that's how I do life. Like foster care, my husband and I felt impressed over one weekend that we needed to do it. He was gone from the military that weekend and I was home, and he came home on Sunday night and he's like, I have something I think I need to tell you. And I'm like, so do I. And he's like, I think we need to do foster care. And I'm like, I thought the same thing. And we called on Monday.
No way.
To get started. We just feel strongly when we're impressed to do something, to act on it, and then let Heavenly Father carry us through it. And so that's what we did. Same thing with grad school. I learned about the program on like a Thursday. I know the cutoff for application was the next Wednesday. So I applied on Monday and Tuesday and got accepted 2 weeks after that. Like it's just, when he says run, we say where and how fast.
Oh, Taylor, you guys are awesome. That is so cool. I love that. So cool. I love it. And I love your little discussions that you've been sharing, even just this week in your stories. You put out questions and then people's feelings about the things that you're putting out. And it's just empowering and inspiring and strengthening to hear not only your take, but your audience's take. And I love it. It's really cool.
Well, thank you. I feel like I sometimes will start with an idea, read the Come Follow Me and start writing it. And some of my posts, you'll notice, have a different feeling at the beginning than at the end because the Spirit completely takes over. And I don't say that to be cheesy. I know sometimes it can sound that way, but I'll sometimes read an old post that someone will comment on from a long time ago or something and reread it. And I'll be like, that is not something I would normally say. That's not a direction I plan to go. And so that has been a really cool experience, is just allowing the Spirit to kind of take over. And so it's taught me more than I expected to be taught. Those thoughts definitely are often not my own, for sure.
I think that is such a powerful gift to develop, is to learn how to feel that Spirit and hear it and act on it. Because, man, it's tricky to figure out that spirit of revelation at first. And it kind of comes and goes. And, at first you worry, is that me or is it the Spirit? And even still, even though I've been working on it for so long, I sometimes don't see till afterwards. I'm like, oh yeah, that wasn't me. That was totally needed to happen.
I still do that in my thoughts, but for some reason when I'm writing, like I can just allow the Spirit to kind of take over. So that has taught me that we all probably have places that happens, maybe when we're being creative or whatever, that it's just easier for our brains and spirits to connect, I think. So for me, that's through writing. But when I'm just like thinking things through or whatever, or just speaking, I don't feel like I'm as good at speaking. It's harder for me to make that connection. So
That is a really cool idea. That makes me want to like go through my life and think, okay, where am I more gifted? Where am I feeling it in a stronger way? That's cool.
Yeah, that has definitely been a big lesson that I've learned. So
I love that. Well, let's talk about your YouTubes a little bit. So I love what you're doing, how you call it the Mix It Up Black History and the Restoration. So tell us where that came from, because is that something you just started this year?
Yeah, so at the end of 2020, I was like, okay, this is going to be probably like November. It was starting to enter my mind. I'm like, this is going to be the first Black History Month, which isn't until February. So why it was on my mind in November, I couldn't figure out at the time. And I'm like, what should I share? It'll be my first Black History Month, with To Cheer and to Bless as a page, because I started in April, right?
So, right, not obviously not in your life, right?
Yes. And so I was like, what can I share that could be significant? What could I do that would be useful and help teach, my perspective? And so I ruminated on that for a really long time. And then I had the impression to share these stories of early pioneers, especially because we're learning about the Restoration this year. So it's going to line up really well. We're learning about the Book of Mormon and all of the things that happened with the Restoration. And so I thought, oh, I'll just share 4 stories, just 4 in February. And then I got thinking about it and started researching and trying to find these people and their stories. And then I was finding this person. And I'm like, well, how can I tell this story without telling this one? And how can I tell this one without this one? And then suddenly I realized this is a much bigger thing. And so I decided to do it every week for the weeks that we studied the D&C. So it started the last week of December with our first week of the D&C. And, life will happen. There might be a week I miss, but so far I haven't missed one. Just because it's been a joy to study these members of the church and their stories. Growing up, I only heard stories of white pioneers, like the pioneer typical stories that we hear in sacrament meeting. And they were wonderful, but they were harder to relate to for me. And then with all of the social unrest we've been facing, I believe so strongly that instead of telling people how to feel, that if we help us see each other and truly, truly know each other and know each other's stories, that then we can create a connection that makes us want to do better. So I didn't want to get on and lecture people about how maybe I have felt in the gospel being a person of color or just in my life. Instead, I just thought, how about I just share stories and share experiences, and the Spirit will touch people's hearts in the way that that person needs without me being someone who's lecturing. So it's been a lot of fun to study these stories and to share them. And I always say a prayer right before to say what that person would want me to say about them. And if it's possible, if that person can, attend me and help me share their story. And sometimes it's funny and I laugh through them because I'm like, oh, this person had a fun. But sometimes I'm holding back tears because I can feel the heaviness of their lives and their stories. So I just feel like I have all these friends now that I'm gathering that someday I'm going to get to meet, which is maybe my favorite part.
So incredible. I am so touched by that. And after because I started binge watching your videos once I saw the first one, and I even showed it to my kids. We've been homeschooling half our kids during the pandemic. And I'm like, okay, guys, this is going to be some of your history today. We're going to learn about this because this is something that I have pioneer heritage that goes through Hiram Smith. So my mom has been she's done such a good job making sure I knew all those stories. And the stories that you're telling are things that I have never heard. And I just appreciate hearing that side, just incredible. And I told my husband, here we are in the world that is so divided and there is so much hate. And it just makes me so sick about the way that people are treating each other and getting on different sides. And I said, and then there's this amazing Taylor, and she's just sharing truth and sharing true experiences without bias of saying, you guys are bad for doing this or you guys are bad for doing that. But just sharing the story brings me more understanding of what people have gone through. And yeah, I'm as white as they come. No, and but there's, somehow I want to be as understanding as I can because that wasn't my life. So I can't really understand what that was. So the only way I can really get there is from people like you sharing what happened, so I just think knowledge is everything. It can just turn things all the way around, and it can bring us more connection and bring us closer together, because I felt so connected to those people that you were talking about, just hearing what they went through. And it just baffles me and it just blows my mind, the things that people have been through in their lives. So I think it's so cool that you pray to have them with you. Oh, I just love that. Wow, it's just so cool.
Well, thank you. I guess it's working. And I forgot to mention that I make a recipe because I'm hoping that
I should have brought that up as a food blogger. I think it's so fun you do that.
I make a recipe while I do it for a couple reasons. First, if you don't want to hear the story, maybe you want to hear or see the recipe and you accidentally learn something at the same time. And then also, I think that whenever I watch people that are doing something at the same time while they're talking, I get distracted and I listen better. And so I thought, well, this might be fun. It certainly isn't because I'm a chef. And you'll see that, like, how many things can one person make with ground beef? That's what we're going to learn from this, but it's just kind of fun. I have to make dinner anyway, or whatever. So I'll set up a tripod, make dinner, and tell you a story. And that's kind of where that came from. It's not because I'm trying to get a cookbook deal or anything like that, but we're all making dinner. I feel like we can all relate. And so that part of it is kind of where that came from.
Well, and I think it sets a fun tone because, like you said in one of your videos, you want it to feel like you're just having someone over in their kitchen. I say that to my podcast guests all the time when they're worried about, well, should it be this stiff interview? And I'm like, no, I want it to just feel like we're hanging out as friends and we're talking about what is happening in our lives and sharing to help each other build. And that it just feels like two gals hanging out, having a great time and learning something while you're at it. Like real good meaty conversation, not the gossip about the neighbors down the street or who's bugging you or whatever. This is like real, just great conversation, which I love.
I agree.
Will you tell us a story? Do you mind sharing about one of your wonderful people?
Yes. So I love the sister stories, but right at the beginning I'm trying to go in chronological order. So there's a lot of men for a long time, but towards the end of the year, we're going to get a lot of sisters. So like a little sneak peek is Susan Gray Reed Leggroon. She was born in Mississippi in slavery, and she was a slave until the Emancipation. So she didn't like escape or anything like that. And then she met her husband, Mr. Reed. I'm not sure what his name is, unfortunately. And they had 2 sons together. And then he passed away, unfortunately, and she was a widow. So she was raising her boys by herself in the Deep South as a freed slave, which I think we forget the significance of. You couldn't just go get a job. You couldn't just go get a house. A lot of people still lived like slaves on their plantation owners' property because now they were getting paid like a penny and not being fed. And they're like, now you're workers instead of slaves. And so it was just not pretty. So she met her husband, her next husband, Ned. And Ned had a sister, Amanda, and her husband, who had been converted to the church. And they were headed west to come to Utah. And they invited Ned and Susan to come with them, but Ned and Susan didn't want to convert at the time. So they're like, we'll just come with you and check out.
So wait a minute. I think I've heard the story about Ned. Have you talked about Ned?
Yeah, we talked about Ned.
Okay. I'm like, wait, this sounds familiar. Yeah. I think I know these people. Okay.
Like week 17, I think, is Ned. And so they did. So they come across, and he had a son as well. His wife had passed away. So they had these 3 little boys that they're like taking across the plains, and they get to the Salt Lake. They live here like 3 years. And then finally they're like, I guess we'll join. I guess if you can't beat them, join them. So they got baptized, and they moved to a different ward in Salt Lake that had a lot of Black members. I say a lot, the most out of, there weren't that many, but it had the most Black members in it. And they lived there for a while, and then they decided they didn't like city life. And so they started a bunch of little farms in Utah. Well, during that time, Susan had 13 kids. Of those, I know, like, doesn't that make you tired being a farmer and then having 13? But of those 13, only 8 she was able to raise to adulthood. And one of her sons died at 6. George, he died at 6. Lydia died at the age of 2, and her son David died at the age of 8. And she lost both of the little boys from her first marriage as well. So they all passed away. And so I just think how brave that would have to be to just keep going. And I know a lot of the pioneer sisters lost wives. And so it's just heartbreaking to think about what that had to have been like, to lose 5 of your children. I can't even imagine. And then she was a widow. So she had lost her husband as well. And so what I love about their story is that September 3rd, 1875, they were able to go to the endowment house, which is what they used kind of for their temple while they were building the Salt Lake Temple. And she was able to be proxy for her mother, Margaret. And she was able to be proxy for her current husband, Ned's first wife, Florida. And Ned did the work for her husband, which is really cool. And then she was also able to do the work for her first mother-in-law. So I think that is so cool that they were able to do that work, especially because soon after, sisters were no longer able to receive their endowment. President Taylor said that sisters that were Black were no longer able to receive their endowment. So they were able to do that work before that happened, or before that was stopped for them, which is really cool that they were able to do that.
Wow, that is incredible.
Yes. And so after living in Salt Lake for a while, they decided to move to Idaho, and they farmed there, and they lived in this town, Milo, Idaho, and they planted all these giant, well, they're now giant trees. And so everyone says you can go and see the foundation that they laid for that town, that their trees are still there and growing. And then her husband passed away 2 years before she did. So she was a widow again for the second time. But they were both noted as well-known, well-loved, and always held in high regard by everyone that knew them. And their lives were celebrated in both of their funerals by the Black LDS community, but also by the white LDS community at the time. Everyone always just loved the Leggroons. And so that is the story of Susan.
That is so cool. So neat. Oh, I just love it. Let's give everybody your handle so they can go listen to more of those stories.
Yeah, so Instagram and Facebook is just To Cheer and To Bless. It's easy. And then YouTube they're linked from those pages if you just want to follow the link, or it's just under my name, Taylor Ricks, on YouTube.
Okay. And I'll put links to all those in the show notes so that people can go straight there. Awesome. Is there anything else that you want to share? Anything else from this experience, or that you've been learning as you've been going through all this, or a message for us to hear?
I just think that I have learned the importance of truly being authentic to yourself. And as you do that, as you put yourself out there in whatever capacity that is, whether it's as a friend, a wife, a mother, a ministering sister, or serving in your callings, or if you like to share things online as well, whatever it is, when you're authentic to who you are, then the Spirit is more able to speak through you, instead of being so worried about putting on a front, or looking a certain way or talking a certain way. And so that is what I've learned this year, is to just be unashamedly who I have been made to be, and then allowing Heavenly Father to teach me and help me grow through that and share my testimony of Him through that authenticity.
That's awesome. Thank you. Gosh, I hate to transition into this just lighthearted, helpful, and happy questions after you've been just telling us so many wonderful things. But do you mind spending a few minutes with us talking about that so we can get to know you in another way?
Sure.
Okay, so on the Helping of Happiness blog, we also cover food and travel and homemaking hacks. And so that's why I thought I would ask you any of your things. So what is your favorite food or meal? Anything favorite? Have you cooked it on your blog? On your blog. On your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I should have a blog now.
Yes, add one more thing to all the things you're doing.
So I am crazy, and I absolutely love chocolate chip cookies, number one, but I am very picky about them. I have probably 7 recipes, and depending on my mood will depend on I need a thick, soft on the inside, crunchy on the outside, so I know I do this one, or I need whatever. I need completely soft, or a thinner cookie that's more crispy. So I'm really weird about it, and have collected a lot of them and make a lot of them. So definitely chocolate chip cookies.
So are you an oatmeal chocolate chip cookie person, or are you like a chocolate chip cookie purist?
I'll accept the oatmeal, and then I can call it healthy. I'm like, this is a breakfast chocolate chip cookie.
We're having breakfast. It's great.
My husband's a personal trainer, so he probably dies when I say that. But he's like, don't tell people that. But no, I definitely just prefer a really good normal.
I'm with you. I'm definitely open to an oatmeal chocolate chip cookie, but if I'm gonna just make them for fun, it's gonna be just the old traditional chocolate chip. Love it. Okay, I love that that's a favorite food. That's one of mine too. I love all the cookies, but that one's just always going to be my
Yeah,
very
just
favorite.
so boring, but oh, so good.
Oh, I know. In the batter. I'll just take all of it. It's just so
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay, do you have a favorite trip you've gone on or a dream vacation?
Okay, we're not huge travelers. We've been raising small people for a long
Yes, it's just really hard to travel when you have lots of little kids,
time, and then COVID messes it up.
especially
But
when you had all those surgeries in the beginning. It's impossible to go anywhere.
had probably one a year since that. So it was like a lot in the beginning, and now we can handle one a year. We just know like the snacks that we get at Primary Children's when we go, and it's great. We have it all. We have a schedule. We have it all worked out. I'm originally from Spokane, Washington, and moved to Utah as a teenager, and that's where I met my husband, who moved into his ward, and so we kind of grew up together from teenage on. So we love to go back to Spokane. It's just gorgeous, so beautiful, and just chill. Like you can just go on hikes and walks and love it. And then my brother for a while lived in California with his wife. And so that year that he lived there, we went there like 4 or 5 times and just had fun just exploring the beaches and things like that. So we're not huge travelers, but it is just fun to get out of your own little area.
Yes. Well, and what different terrain, California and Spokane. Those are so different. How fun.
Yes, I just love the Northwest. Oh, hope we can move there again someday. Beautiful
Oh,
place.
gorgeous, gorgeous. That's on my bucket list. I would love to do like an Oregon coast trip. Doesn't that just sound dreamy?
Yes, and that was actually our plan for 2020 because I have
Oh,
family that live there too. My grandparents are there, and so we were like, we want to do that. And my grandpa passed away instead, and we couldn't go see him in Oregon, and so that was really
that
that
was
was a
really hard.
part. But we definitely will go see grandma and do the coast because it's so beautiful. So.
Last one. Do you have a homemaking hack for us?
Okay, so this one is kind of funny. I like my kids' hair to be done as we leave the house. So our kitchen is right by like our way out the door. And so underneath my kitchen sink, I have a little caddy and it has like a spray bottle, the mousse, the hairspray, the hair gel, and some hair ties for my daughter and the brush. And so we just do hair like on the way out the door, just in the kitchen.
Ooh.
Sounds a little crazy. We step away from, the sink and everything like that, but it makes it so easy, like before school and stuff, that no matter what they did all morning, I can just do their hair on the way out the door. Otherwise, they start wrestling or something.
Oh,
And
yeah. No, this is genius because I guarantee you, every time I put my daughter's hair in a bun or something that has to hold its shape, she goes and rubs her head under a blanket or something. And then, especially when we're going to church, and I'm like, are you kidding me? We just spent all this time doing your hair and it's a mess.
yeah,
But you just plan that into your exit. You're like, okay, we'll leave what, 5 or 10 minutes for hair on our way out. And then is that kind of how you work it?
pretty much. And like when one kid's putting on shoes, I'm doing the other kid's hair, and then the next. And if we're running a little late, I will kind of torture them and do their hair while they're eating breakfast.
Oh,
And just
yeah.
carry my caddy from each person to the next. But most of the time we can just do it. And I have mostly boys, that helps. But just as they're walking out the door. So works
Oh
great.
my goodness. I need to get a hair caddy. That is brilliant. I
Yeah,
love that.
I mean, game changer. Because
I do
otherwise
have a laundry sink on my way out to the garage. That would be a fun one for them to stick their head in.
but yeah, I think that's great.
Oh, that is such a good idea. I love that one. I'm going to make myself a note on that. So we have caddies for the kids. They don't use them the way they should ever, but under the bathroom sinks for each of their personal things. Like my one son, he's got braces and contacts. So he's got like all this extra stuff that he needs, so he has his caddy and it's supposed to have his face wash and his toothbrush and all those things. And whether those things all stay in their caddies or not, it doesn't always happen. But now I can have a hair caddy too. So it's going to everyone's going to have the little set. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, it is awesome. You'll love it.
Thank you. This was so great. I'm so happy that I got to actually meet you instead of just feeling like I know you because I watch your videos.
Yeah, it was awesome to visit with you.
Hey, Lindy, let's give us our little spoonful of spirit for the day.
Awesome. Thank you. So today we are going to talk about a very specific sliver of the atonement. We talk about the atonement as in a lot of times when we sin, then the atonement is there to help us work to amend and to remove the blocks and move forward. And part of that is that the effects, not necessarily the consequences, the worldly consequences, those will still be there, but the effects of those sins and mistakes, even one more sliver of that is how that affects other people. So I don't know that we focus very much on how we can call on the atonement to help us when other people's sins and mistakes have hurt us, even inadvertently or unintentionally, like different personalities or different things where they're not necessarily wrong, but it still triggers and hurts you. All of those things are covered in the atonement, and you can call on the atonement to help you through those things and to forgive and to move forward. And so I kind of want to go through a little bit on what it means, like what are some ways that we are hurt by others. So my list.
Let's just air it all out today. How are you hurting, Lindy?
Well, I know some of my triggers. And my triggers are like when I feel alone or invisible or unheard. And my husband doesn't communicate a lot. Like he doesn't use words. And so I'll say something and then he won't look up, he won't respond. And I'll be like, hello, are you there? Are you hearing what I'm saying? He's like, yeah. I'm like, then respond. But more than that, like, he's the kind of person where when he's processing, he needs to be alone.
Yeah.
And when I'm processing, I need a hug. And
Yeah.
so when he sees that I'm hurting, he walks away from me, and that's super hurtful.
Yeah. And those are things to know about yourself and to express to those that are close to you, right?
Yeah. And I have expressed those things a few times, but he doesn't.
You just have to remind him a lot.
You need to process this. I'm like, no, come give me a hug. But so for me, feeling alone or ignored is a big one. Bullies, people who like intentionally injure you and are mean to you. Rejection, that's a big one that holds us back and that hurts a lot. Abandonment or neglect. Lies, and not just lies, but broken promises. Mm-hmm. I put that kind of under the same like deception or lies, even though a lot of times when you make the promise, you're not planning on breaking it, but that it still feels like a lie to the person that it's happening to. Blaming us for something that we didn't do. I see it a lot in my kids, but I've actually
that happens in my family all the time. Always blaming the wrong kid for the wrong thing.
And even more subtly, adults will do this. They will blame their actions on somebody else. Mm-hmm. So I did this because they did this.
Oh yeah.
Like, instead of saying
all the time,
saying you're right, I did that, and I was triggered, and this is what happened. But yes, I did that. I think of Adam and Eve, where Eve says, the serpent beguiled me and I did eat. So she still gave like the background on it, but she took responsibility then, and so I think the backstory is okay. Like, yes, I was triggered this way, but I did do that, and that was inappropriate. So those are some of the ways just off the top of my head of like ways that we are hurt. And there are a billion others. There are people who are intentionally hurting. There are people who are unintentionally hurting others. There's family feuds. Oh my goodness. Right when I said that, then all of these like family feuds popped in my brain of like family members who are hurting each other over things that are worldly. So many ways that we can be hurt, and everybody has their story. And I'd like, as your listeners are listening, you people who are listening, then think of maybe a way that you are hurting and then apply the next part to it. So how do we use the atonement? This was a good lesson for me because we talk about the atonement and we say, well, use the atonement, but then we don't really, in fact,
talk about how to do that. The application is really tricky. Yeah. Well, it feels tricky because you feel like, I don't know.
And I even, for this lesson, I tried to study and find, like, I would type in the church website and say, how to use the atonement, and nothing came up. I was like, what?
Isn't this supposed to be the main answer on here?
You're supposed to teach me how to use the atonement. Come on. So I got to pray about it and figure it out. And so here's a little bit. I do invite you, if you're trying to learn more about the atonement, to study it for sure. And those nuggets, I will tell you, are hidden in talks and lessons about the atonement. But if you type in how to use the atonement, not very much comes up. So study about the atonement, and you will find those nuggets if you're looking for them.
And they'll probably be even more personal to you as you're
Yeah,
studying instead of just
exactly.
listening on a how-to manual, right?
Yes, 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 perfect. So how to use the atonement, and more specifically, how to use it when we are hurting by what somebody else has done. The first one is to pray. And that seems obvious, but pray specifically as like, Heavenly Father, I this prayer is intended to call on the atonement and to help me with this specific thing. I was hurt in this way, and this is what I'm hurting, and these are the feelings that I'm having, and this is how I want retribution. This is no, you don't have to say but but to pray and pray honestly, and also pray specifically with saying I'm wanting to use the atonement here.
Mhm.
So a prayer
And I
with
think it is also fine to tell him the ways that you are angry and you're upset. Like, I don't think you need to keep that out of prayer. Just
oh
lay it all out.
yeah,
That's
no,
important.
yeah. And
He's a
yeah,
safe place to go.
it's a very safe place to go, because the truth is, and I like that you said that. Side note, my dad is wonderful at being able to hear the rantings of one person and still loving the other person and knowing that they have their story.
Mhm.
And so for me, he's a safe place to go,
Yeah.
because I know that I can complain about this person and he's still going to love them,
Mhm.
and he's still going to, see through my rantings and know that this person has their story and they're a child of God. And how much more that is with God. You can rant, you can tell him why you're hurting, you can tell him your anger, you can tell him your frustrations, and I dare say you could probably even blame people if you need to, knowing that you have your blame as well. But he can see through that and still love the other person. So he is a very safe place. I like that you said that. So the other thing is ask to say, in this situation, I would like to use the atonement. Can you help me? I don't know that I have done that much, and after this lesson, I have asked, and I've asked for the atonement to be used, like I said, on my kids when I'm angry. Like, Holy Father, can I use the atonement right here and just like bless their lives because I messed up? So ask. A third one is to get a priesthood blessing, specifically to call on the atonement and to help you with ways that you are hurt. Then the other one is to have faith. That's a big one for me. I have faith in a lot of things, but faith that these feelings that I'm feeling of anger and hurt can actually be taken away, and that I can feel love and forgiveness, especially in the moments that I'm feeling it. It's really hard to have faith that can even happen. And experience helps with that faith. I can look back and go, oh yeah, this terrible thing happened to me, and I remember feeling these same feelings, and I was able to get rid of those feelings after a grieving period, or after whatever, using the atonement. So have faith that the atonement can help, and then look for the evidences that it's helping. Look for the ways that your heart is being softened, or the other person is treating you better, or you're able to disconnect from the other person and get them out of your life, or whatever it is. Look for the evidences that he is helping you. The last one that I have is to show gratitude for that help, and even when you're not using it right then, using the atonement right then, to show gratitude that it even exists. I see the atonement as like we're on this path to God, and then we make a mistake and there's a dam. I mean, that's why it's called damned, right? Is there's a
Because you're
dam and
stuck.
it stops you from progressing.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what a dam with water does, right? It stops
Mhm.
it from progressing. And so I have this dam, and I can't progress even like in this life. in that topic. I mean, I can progress in other ways, but on that specific topic, I can't progress anymore because there's a dam. And without the atonement, that dam would be there, and it would be on all of my paths, on all of the principles, on all of the things that I'm making mistakes. And the atonement can take out that dam and help me progress again. And I'm so grateful that that even exists. And I'm super grateful that I know that it exists. And so that I can purposefully and intentionally call on the atonement to take out the dam and help me progress. And part of somebody else hurting you, that is in itself kind of a dam, in that it can stop you emotionally from things that you're ready and willing to do because you're hurt.
I love that.
I would just want to go into how can the atonement help real fast. One is that it can help us forgive. And whenever I talk about forgiveness, I want to emphasize that it doesn't mean that we need to forget, and it doesn't mean that we need to keep putting ourselves in danger. We can forgive and still remove ourselves from danger, and we can still remember what happened, and so that we can move forward keeping ourselves safe. So forgive is actually those feelings that are blocking you. You can get rid of those feelings by forgiving. The atonement can give us strength through the hard times. So sometimes the consequence, like I said at the beginning, the worldly consequence is still there. But we can be given strength through those hard times and those consequences. It can soften our hearts. It can help us as we move through these trials and these things. It can help us become better and not bitter. I saw a quote that said that, and I loved it. To help us become better and not bitter. It can give us patience, provide comfort, and it can connect us to the people on earth who can help, which I think is a big one too, that sometimes we think it's just that we can fix it on our own, that between God and us we can get through, but God places people and circumstances in our lives to help us along, and that's part of why we're here, right, is to help each other through all of these things. So the atonement can help us direct us to the right people, whether it's a friend or a counselor or somebody and something that can help us to heal. So I am grateful for the atonement, and the more that I learn about it, the more amazing it is, and the more I'm just grateful for Christ and what he experienced, and he knew what he was doing, and that's what made it possible for him to do it.
Thank you so much, Lindy. I think that is so powerful. I love that, because I think there is so much hate and animosity going on, not only in our families. Yes, it's like this little incubator of hotbed for all these things that we need to get over and get through, but just the world in general is just
we're all hurting
each other. And I think what a good way to start. What if we all got on our knees and just prayed and asked for help to get through this, and to know how to have the atonement help us, and to pray for miracles. That's one thing I loved in general conferences last time, was President Nelson's talk about faith and moving mountains. This is a mountain, and this is a mountain that we need to get through, not only personally, but I think on a worldwide level, right? We've all got to learn how to love each other and not forget, but to keep ourselves safe. I love how you said that, because you don't want to you don't need to be a doormat and just keep having the same things hurtful happen to you over and over, but to give you strength, and you can still be soft and have boundaries. And I just think that it's so great. And that if you really want these things moved, pray about it, focus about it. This is a mountain, it can be moved with the Lord. He can help you move that mountain. So I think that's just such an awesome idea. I love the idea of the dams being up and the water rushing again. I think that just feels so freeing.
Yes.
I think that's so great.
Yeah, that's a good visual.
Well, if you'd like to get a little discount in your Enoch Studies shop, you can throw in our promo code. Our promo code is HAPPY30 ! You can get 30% off in that anything in the shop. HAPPY30 ! In the Enoch Studies shop. One other thing that I'm a little sad to announce, but I'm also a little bit excited, is that this is going to be our last podcast of season 1. We're going to be starting up season 2 at the end of July. So we're going to be taking June off, and I just need a little bit more time to work on some more fun content for you guys. We're going to really be trying to focus more on our YouTube channel this summer. And I have a lot of different things that I need to catch up on with my family. So family first for a little while. So many episodes in our archives. This is episode 155. So there are so many that you can go back through and re-listen to if you've already listened to all of them. And if you haven't listened to all of them, we have some real gems in there. So make sure that you go back and check those out. And subscribe to our Helping of Happiness newsletter, and you can get even more information about what is happening with us. Go to helpingofhappiness.com and just punch in your email, and you'll be sent updates of what we're doing every week. And we can email you links to those new YouTubes. And you can also be up to date of when we're going to start dropping new podcast episodes. So have a fantastic summer. You're the best. We love you.